first things first, of course, what got you into Machinima?
Well, it started all the way back in, I think it was 2003, 2004, when Red vs. Blue just hit the scene. They had about 7 or 8 episodes up, and my buddy Steve, who you all know has worked closely with me on a number of video projects, showed me this. We watched all 7 or 8 episodes in succession, and right then I had found my calling. Because before that, like, I've always wanted to create something, whether it be what I was doing at the time was I was playing a lot of RTS games and trying to make scenarios out of their map editors, and I tried to make these really complex things, but I felt too restricted. And then basically I saw this, where it's you make a video about whatever the hell you want, you can write it, you can film it, you can voice act it, you have this free palette, and basically after I saw Red vs. Blue, I became hooked. And then I discovered Machinima.com when they were around way back then, and that's when I discovered that it's not just all about Halo, it's all about games like Counter-Strike, which I was really big into at the time. Battlefield 1942 was another game I was really hooked on at the time. Once I saw this, I basically got fraps. The first video I ever made was this thing called Counter-Strike Dodgeball, where I'm basically just filming in this public server a map, HE Dodgeball in Counter-Strike, where people are just throwing grenades at each other, and that's it. And friendly fire's on, so a ton of hilarious stuff happens. You know, I mean, I was really young at the time. I put in Metallica Master of Puppets because I'm so cool, dog, you know, and I just put a bunch of clips in. It's much like, I saw it as sort of like a frag movie that wasn't boring, and that was basically my first introduction to Machinima. And from then on, I kind of, off and on, like I did a Battlefield stunt movie, and then basically once I started associating with the JS group that still is around now, that's when we started making the Machinimas that you see today.
Now, majority of the films now all take place in like the Source Engine and Garry's Mod and Half-Life. Yep. What attracted you to that game in particular?
Well, first would have to be my absolute love for Counter-Strike. I was so, like, I played that game to death. I played it competitively. I played it for fun. I used to frequent a Nipper map server, and I was hooked on this game for the longest time. And so when I had discovered a guy by the name of Daniel Fromm, he made Militia 2, which is like this, supposed to be like this melodramatic, really serious Counter-Strike drama movie. I discovered the Chipmunk Ninjas. They made this hilarious commercial in Counter-Strike called Packet Loss. And basically, I knew that since Counter-Strike was my big game at the time, and these people were making these hilarious products, that I wanted to stick to the Half-Life engine.
Now, when it comes to Garry's Mod Machinima, there's like so many things that people say are like good things and bad things. For you, what is like one of the biggest problems when trying to make a Garry's Mod movie?
Ooh, I would say getting the cooperation of everybody. We have a couple of people who like to take part in critiquing like the writing and discussing how exactly a movie should play out. And it's kind of hard to translate your vision for a project to that other person. And so in the case of Counter-Strike for Kids, one of our biggest videos, like we had about 4 or 5 people constantly arguing changes about the video, like we should have this, no we shouldn't have this, we should have this here instead of at the end, we should put a little something after the credits. Basically it was this this whole creative process between 4 or 5 people, and eventually we reached an agreement, and that was probably one of the only cases where I think everybody was absolutely happy with the final product. But yeah, one of the greatest challenges, given the nature of our work, the fact that everything is really fucking silly, is also why that when we're filming, a lot of people who have taken part in the filming like to deliberately mess up the shots. And I have to learn to cope with that. Like, for example, in the first episode of the Gman Squad, when we were filming all the stuff with the trip mines and boosting up onto the trip mines, the funniest thing that happened, I didn't even notice at the time because I was so annoyed and pissed off at how we were trying to get specific shots, but it just wasn't working at all. And that was when HK, who also does the voice of Clyde, he does this thing where he just jumps down from the sky. There's this stairway of 4 trip mines, and he goes, "Wee!" And it's the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard him say at this point. Like, I didn't realize he could sound so funny. Basically what happens is he somehow miraculously fit, or the game glitched. He basically got past this wall of mine, and then he just goes, "Whoa! Did you see that?" And then somebody comes down, and there's this giant explosion, and 3 people die. I was so frustrated at the time over the fact that we couldn't get this other shot that we were looking for at the time, that I completely didn't notice this happening until after I looked back at the demo. I saw that this happened. I was like, oh my god. I must have laughed for about 5-10 minutes straight. So I guess I guess it's just a matter of getting everybody to work together as a team, because one of the benefits to Machinima is obviously all you need is a computer, but at the same time, like live action is nicer because you have everyone there in person. You're not dealing with lag, you're not dealing with inconsistencies of internet connections, you're not dealing with people having problems with games. It's just I would say getting everybody on the same page is always the hardest thing, and but I'm so grateful that we've had people who are so willing and anxious and have fun basically helping out.
What do you call yourself? The JS Syndicate or?
Yeah, the Anna Syndicate. There's a big. It's basically from GoldenEye. That's how we started. A lot of our people met on the GoldenEye source mod forums, and basically we kind of went from that into this Machinima group. Basically, all we do is we hang out in Ventrilo, we make videos, we play video games, and we get on every now and then. And we've had a really consistent inner workings of about 10, 20 people that come in and out of the event on a regular basis.
Now, one thing that everyone's noticed that you have actually became a part of the Machinima Directors Program.
Indeed.
How did that feel when that basically happened?
Well, it was really cool how it started, because a nefarious guy, a buddy of mine who I stayed with in New York City when I went to the Machinima Festival, Machinima.com emailed him asking him, hey, we're looking for people who can make videos in the Half-Life and the Source engines. We're looking for people who can produce Machinima content with those games. And he dropped my name, and that's when I got an email from them saying, hey, I heard about you from Nefarious Guy, because Nefarious Guy had been setting up competitions and contests for them at the time with the Ivy Film Festival. Basically, he dropped my name. They got in touch with me. We made it happen, and I was all for the idea because I knew I was going to have more of an audience. I knew I wasn't going to be restricted to making two-part videos if I have a video that's longer than 10 minutes. And it basically was a hobby that became sort of a job. And I couldn't have been happier with that.
Now, as Machinima Director yourself, there are so many Machinimas out there. Which ones do you enjoy watching? What's your favorite?
Well, my favorite would have to be some of the old classics that I would say inspired me. And the two that immediately come to mind, the first one's a little video called Pub Masters. And that might not be a Machinima in the strictest sense, but it's absolutely brilliant because there's this whole backstory where it's a bunch of guys, they play competitively in Counter-Strike 1.6 leagues to get to a higher level that's more serious. But then once they get to that level, they're just going to goof around and be absolutely hilarious and pull all these pranks on unsuspecting, legitimate Counter-Strike teams. And they made a video out of that that was ridiculously well edited. And you could watch this over and over again, funny parts all the way through, and they made it seem like it was this brilliant sketch comedy sort of thing. And that's basically what got me out of this red versus blue mindset that I first had, where it's like, well, geez, if I'm making a Machinima, it's got to be like red versus blue. It's got to be counter-terrorist versus terrorist. It's got to be Combine versus Rebels. No, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can do a Tim and Eric kind of thing, which has basically been arguably my biggest inspiration in a number of my videos in terms of the humor, the style of the humor. And pretty much there's that, and then there's Counter-Strike Clan versus Noob, which is an old video made by the Family God back in 2004. And this got downloaded a ridiculous number. We're talking days before YouTube here. He must have gotten at least 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 downloads, which is phenomenal. He put so much work into this Counter-Strike 1.6 movie that basically was how I see, like, with Source Wars, you know, how we modified the level in DE Dust so that the truck can crash through it. Like, he took Dust there, and he added, like, this whole, like, house where one of the bomb sites are, and he made all these additions, like a school bus driving through the level, and he did all these amazing custom things and made a really solid production effort into this video. And I would say those two have been my biggest inspirations, and I would have to call them my favorites.
Now, there's a lot of interesting people in the syndicate.
No, that's for sure. Definitely.
Now, how did you meet a few of them?
Well, started with Steve. He has lived down the street from me. And then we have people like CRACKBONE, who we discovered seriously in a Zombie Panic game. And he was basically treating a game of Zombie Panic as if it was real life, you know. He was treating the fact that a zombie invasion was actually happening as he was playing this game and talking over the microphone. And we just basically added him on Steam. We talked to him, gave him the Ventrilo server information just casually, like, hey, if you ever want to come in, join our Ventrilo, you know. And he started to be a regular ever since that point. Then we have people like Wolfer and HK Sniper, who we had heard about on the Face Punch Studios forums. They had made series like Adventures of Gary, these hilariously satirical videos about forums, basically in general, not just necessarily Face Punch. Got a hold of them, and basically they kind of started to come along on the Ventrilo server all the time as well. But basically, it's a mix of real life connections and just people that we've met on various like source mods. I've known Boris probably the longest out of all the people on the internet. We did the GoldenEye source thing for a while, and just basically once we started making videos, he instantly wanted to be a part of that too. But yeah, pretty much ever since we met all these people, they've been coming around our Ventrilo from time to time ever since.
Now, there's one question that I think loads of fans must want to ask. CRACKBONE, is he from Norway?
Well, I'm going to have to, I hate to break it to you guys, but no, he's not, and it's probably obvious that he's not. Obviously, his ping's not in like the 150s if he's playing on a US server. He can kind of speak Norwegian, so I'm guessing that's where the whole thing came from.
But there's a lot of fans out there who are absolutely gutted.
Yep. I'm sorry. He's not from Norway.
That's all the time we got for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been a terrific guest.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, Xanatos.
The hot tub's too hot. Hot soup.
I've been Caboos15. Catch you next time.